Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. We are here with an incredible guest, Michael Krause, partner at Atrium Management Company, one of the Southeast landing fully integrated real estate firms over the past 2 decades. Michael has helped oversee the management, lease-up, and acquisition of tens of thousands of apartment homes while growing Atrium to more than 11,000 apartments. What's incredible about this is he started in 2014 and it is only 2026 and they are at 11,000 doors. But beyond the number, Michael's passionate about building exceptional teams, creating a culture where people thrive, and leveraging technology and AI to make business more efficient without losing the human touch. Today we're talking leadership, company culture, innovation, and what it really takes to build a property management company that is designed for long-term success. Michael, welcome to The Road Less Traveled.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Really excited to talk with you because I've kind of watched you and your partner and everything you've done, and it's been exceptional to see all the growth. What would you attribute to the growth of your company?
Yeah. So I would give Adam most of the credit for just having the vision to grow. I can remember back in 2014, 2015, when we were just getting started, we had 228 single family homes. We actually purchased the company from the previous owner, 228 single family homes. We would go to Chipotle probably 4 times a week and just talk about business. And I remember him casting a vision and being like, man, we're going to get to 1,000 units one day. And I remember thinking to myself, absolutely no way. Like, I can't even answer all the emails I have right now with 250 doors. How could we possibly handle 1,000? But Adam has always had the vision, like, just grow and we'll figure it out. And I'll give you one more prime example of that that kind of bent my mind. In 2017, we were looking at buying a company that was about 250 doors. It was our second acquisition, if you include Atrium. And at the time, we maybe had 350. And so it was going to basically put a business on top of a business. And I was working 60 hours a week. He was working 60 hours a week. And he's like, come on, man, let's just do it. We'll figure it out. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how? How do we want to run a business that we already don't have enough time to run the one we're running? But he's always understood, like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so forward has always been the direction, and up has always been the direction that we've had here at Atrium. And I just appreciate Adam for that vision and foresight, because I've learned the same thing too over the years. And now, when it comes to a new challenge or a new opportunity, I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Let's go.
I think that is the key phrase in business. But to ask a question on that, how did you and Adam even get together?
Yeah. There's a bunch of podcasts out there that you could probably listen to the full long version of the story. But basically, by happenstance, I met his wife at a bar. He tells the story that his wife picked me up at a bar. It kind of happened that way. My wife was there. It was a charity event, but it was at a piano bar. And then we went to dinner, became fast friends, and just started talking about property management. Adam was really successful in his own right. He was in small business lending with Wells Fargo, and he was one of the top brokers in the country. And I was in property management and had been since 2003. And he was looking at property management companies, and he was like, hey, we should buy one of these. I'm like, that sounds wonderful. I have no idea how to do that. But he was with Wells, so he understood how small business lending worked. And so we decided to buy a company together. And so that friendship turned into a business partnership at the end of 2014, October 31st. So we closed on Atrium, and again, we had 228 single family homes at the time that we managed. And yeah, kind of the rest is history. As you stated in the intro, we're now up to about 11,000 units, single family and apartments, kind of all over the East Coast.
That's incredible. Now, you started in single family. When did you decide you wanted to break into the big multifamily? Because anybody in the industry knows you got Greystar. That's not an easy place to break into. So one, why did you decide to break into it? And two, how?
Yeah. We always knew we wanted to get into multifamily. I was in multifamily management with Aimco first. In 2003, when I joined as a maintenance technician with Aimco, they had 300,000 apartments that they owned. It was a REIT, real estate investment trust. That's 3 times the number of units that Greystar owns today, and MAA, who's in second place. So they were absolutely massive. That's how I learned property management. And then I was with JRK after that. JRK is a private equity firm out of Los Angeles, and they were in the top 50 at the time in terms of management companies in the country and units under management. So I was with big companies before. It's just what I knew, and so we naturally wanted to gravitate that way. You asked how we got into it. We started small. We started with a 13-unit apartment building in DeLand, Florida, which is that's like a tertiary market. If there ever was a tertiary market, it's as tertiary as it gets with apartments. We took over management of that 13-unit apartment community. And then we started to talk to brokers, local brokers. I remember having a conversation with a guy named Joe at 100 units. And we told Joe we managed 13 apartments. And Adam's like, we kind of represented that we managed 13 apartment buildings when we actually just managed 13 individual apartments. Funny story. We've now done lots of deals with Joe. He's one of our good friends, but that was an awkward conversation at lunch when we tried to misrepresent how much experience we had. But that's all I had done from 2003 until 2014. So I had 11 years in the industry. So I knew we knew how to do it. We just need to kind of build out the platform. We needed somebody to give us a chance. So we got our first large scale multifamily in 2019, the year before COVID hit. So that was the first time we managed one with on-site staff.
That's incredible. Now, you said something that I don't know if anybody else heard, but you started as a maintenance tech? Is that what you said?
That's what I said. Yeah. So I actually, my sister worked for Aimco as a regional. My brother worked for Aimco as a leasing consultant. I was actually at Nationwide Insurance as a PC technician. So I basically helped people restart their computers and their printers all day. And that was 95% of my job. So I was falling asleep in my cubicle. I'd started my own drop shipping business where I was trying to become the next Jeff Bezos, or the first Jeff Bezos. I guess this was 2001, 2002. And that didn't work out, obviously. That being said, I didn't want to burn the candle at both ends, so dropped out of school. And my brother and sister were like, hey, you got to do this apartment business. I'm making a ton of money leasing apartments. So I interviewed for the leasing position that was available in Columbus, Ohio at the time. I didn't get the job. I actually offended the HR director during the conversation. And so
for some reason I can see that.
Yeah. So I just put my foot in the mouth, which happens fairly frequently if you ask my partner. And she called me a couple weeks later. She's like, hey, you didn't get the leasing job, but if you want to be a maintenance tech, you don't need to have any skills for that. You can learn it all on the job. And so that started my career in property management. First day on the job, my maintenance supervisor said, hey, at lunch today, you got to go start your tool collection and get a 6-in-1 screwdriver and a channel lock. And I still keep my 6-in-1 screwdriver on my desk, actually, where I kind of got my career started in property management. So
I can only envision the pictures you have of being a maintenance tech. That's incredible. But you started as a maintenance tech. Y'all started in single family. You built an incredible 11,000 unit company. Now, you talk a lot about culture versus strategy. You said that culture beats strategy if you want long-term success. That's a bold statement in an industry obsessed with KPIs and growth. Can you share a moment where a strong culture actually outperformed what looked like the right business strategy? Can you help us?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you were to write an instruction manual to govern the decisions that property managers and leasing people and asset managers need to consult for every question, every situation they're going to run into, that operating manual would be tens of thousands of pages long. It's just impossible. So honestly, what we believe at Atrium is you hire good people. We hire on core values mostly, people that align with what we already think. When you go through one of my interviews, it's almost all core value related. Once we go through your background and we learn about what happened in the past and how you got to where you are, I'm going to ask you core values questions, because I'm not going to be there to make a decision for you when you're out in the field, when you're running a property, or when you're leasing a home. You've got to be able to think through those on your own. So we hire based on core values. And then those core values are the guidelines that everybody makes their decisions on. Of course, we have an operating manual. Of course, we have, standard operating procedures. But more important than that is that somebody's a culture fit, and then they're going to fit long term. There's a great book by a guy named Steven Schwartzman who was one of the founders of Blackstone. He said that he calls it the airplane test. This guy runs one of the biggest hedge funds in the entire world. And he said, I hire based on if I would mind spending time with you at the airport. He said, if you and I were stuck at the airport together and I wouldn't enjoy that time, you're out. You don't make it. 5 minutes into the interview, you're out. If you are someone that I would actually be cool with hanging out at the airport with, then you're on to the next level. You got potential. So I know that sounds crazy, but he runs the largest hedge fund in the world, one of the largest hedge funds in the world, and that's his thought process. So we kind of go off that same school of thought. So.
Well, I think that's important, because let's be honest, we spend so much time with the people we work with. Why hire someone that you can't stand? I mean, you need to really care about them in a way, because you're going to be in situations every day going up against brick walls and going up against fires. You got to make sure that you care and you can help each other out. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to expand on it a little further, early on at Atrium, I got involved in NARPM and got around a bunch of great people who really took years off of our trajectory. Due to their kind of foresight in their leadership. So one of those individuals was Duke Dodson. He was actually the second speaker that I saw at NARPM. He came to Orlando and spoke to the Orlando chapter. Shout out to John Bradford, who was the first speaker I ever saw, now with pet screening. But kind of cool first two speakers. But Duke and I became friends. Eventually, I caught up with a broker owner. I met a guy named Matthew Whitaker. And he was with Golden GK Houses at the time, now Evernest. And those two kind of became my mentors in the business. And we started a mastermind group together. There were 4 or 5 other guys in there. Cliff McHugh from Chicago, Mike Schrafer from Duluth, and eventually Vince from Atlas at the time. And that group of guys really helped cut years and years off of our business. And Duke's culture at Dodson and Matthew's culture at Evernest were both very, very heavily culture-focused companies. And we went and we met those guys and we said, these are the pieces that we like, and we're going to emulate those. And like Matthew's team at the time, their goal was 25,000 doors. Every single person on their team knew it. They could recite it. They knew where they were at in terms of that goal. So we made our goal 24,000 doors. Very original. So now we got a 24K club. That's our big ass goal. We got 2.5 years left to hit that. Dodson, we went there and everybody loved their culture. At one point they recreated a boy band music video on stage, and the entire team talked about this. And now every single year our leadership team, our leadership development team, 24K, makes a new music video. So, and we get to pick on ourselves and we have a blast doing it, and the team loves watching it. It's hilarious. So we just took bits and pieces of those companies' cultures that we saw that were great and just emulated it, tried to take it to the next level.
So what would you say to someone that says, hey, I don't have time to make a video, Mike? I don't have time to do this, because that's what you hear in the industry. I don't have time. What would your response be to that?
I mean, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. I used to say I don't have time to work out. I used to say I don't have time to read books. Because I had a new business and I had newborn children. I'll tell you, you'll never have more time than you do today. It's just about how you prioritize that time. And so you just need to make time. We have a leadership team retreat that we do every year that we kind of set up and pick the theme for the following year. I don't have 2 days to dedicate to that. I have to prioritize it. I have to put other things aside and say, this is more important today. The same thing goes with just like team building events and things that might seem frivolous. They're not. They go a long way. I'll never forget a dinner that I had when I first started with JRK Residential. I went to dinner with the owner of the company and a couple other people from the corporate office, my regional, my RVP, and then like 4 or 5 managers that were also in the region that JRK bought at the time. I'll never forget that dinner, and it meant so much to me. So now every time we start a new group of people, we have 7 or 8 new hires, we take them out to a nice dinner, and we basically recreate that experience that, sitting down and having dinner with one of the owners of the company and talking about the future and what it looks like. Again, don't have time for that dinner. You make time. We literally make time for everything we do. It's just about choosing what we prioritize. And for us, we do prioritize culture. It's very important.
I think that's incredible. Like what you said, you prioritize what's important to you, right? You prioritize what is needed to be done. Otherwise, we can always find excuses of why we can't do something because we're all busy. Like you said, we all have 24 hours. We either decide we're going to make excuses to create something or we're going to decide to make excuses why we can't do something. So you talk about culture, you building leadership. How do you build leadership instead of employees as we're talking about this? Because the employee mindset, just do a task, get it done, 8 to 5. How do you actually do the leaders that are accountable to the outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like building leaders, first of all, you have to pick good people to begin with. You got to pick good, we already talked about that and already touched on that, but you have to pick people that align with your core values. And then you have to give them responsibility. One of the ways that we do something that's a little different than I think than most companies is first of all, you're going to learn a lot of what I've done, Tiffany. We've just copied from somebody else. I just told you about the ideas that I copied from Matthew and Duke. I read a great book called The Alliance. I'm looking over at my bookshelf if you wonder where I'm looking to see if it's over there, by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. And he talks about how you want, like, if you own a company, you want everybody to be with you forever. As the owner, you're like, this is the best opportunity. Why would you want to go work somewhere else? Of course you want to be with Rosenbaum for the rest of your life, right? Then nobody does that. Very few stay with you for life. Most people are at your company for seasons. And Reid calls those tours of duty. So we did the same thing. He says that most people are going to be at your company for 18 to 24 months or for 36 to 48 months. Like short stretches, 2 years. Everybody can believe in a vision for 2 years. And so he breaks his roles up at his company, and we've done the same thing. So we have short paths to go from leasing professional or property manager to portfolio manager. To go from leasing manager or leasing professional to assistant manager on the multi side, or assistant manager to property manager. And these 18 to 24 month tours of duty have specific 6-month goals. During the first 6 months, you're learning X, Y, and Z. During the second 6 months, you're learning A, B, and C. And during 12 to 18 months, you're learning whatever, D, E, F. Those roadmaps, I think, kind of keep people going and help them know what they need to take on and what they need to learn to hit that next level. Another thing we talk a lot about at Atrium is just being a blessing to your supervisor or boss. That was one of my big things when I was growing up, is I just wanted to be the person that my boss turned to when they needed help with something extra, right? So I'd always call and say, hey, Mary Lou, if you're listening out there, I love you. Mary Lou Reeves, she'd come to me and she's like, Mike, I need you to go help fix this computer. I need you to go help figure out this report. I was her helper along the way. I actually got the award, and we have the award at Atrium now, the Hoover Award, for the biggest suck up. The person who is the biggest blessing to their boss gets this award. But it's important, because for you to be able to step up to that next role, you need to take those responsibilities on. So I think the first thing is finding people who want to move up and want more, because those are the people that are going to be willing to take that extra mile, take on some of that responsibility from their boss, and earn that leadership. And then you have to have the mentality that you want to see your people succeed or fail, so you have to give them the opportunity. I've plenty of times had people that I didn't think were ready, but their supervisor did say, hey, you go take the chance. If you're putting your neck on the line for this person, let's give them a shot, see if they sink or swim. Because I've been given opportunities in my life where it was sink or swim, and I figured it out. But, and you never know. You don't know if the person's going to succeed or fail, but give them the opportunity and see if they rise to the occasion, or if they've got to go back or move on. So part of that is being willing to promote from within and just give them a shot to see if they can do it.
Yeah, and if you look at that, how did we become business owners? And we have to be willing to let ourselves fail as well. That's how we figure it out. If we're not willing to let other people fail or figure it out, then there's a problem there. Because no human knows everything before they ever start. They need to go through the process, learn, grow, and be able to, fail. I mean, how do you learn? And who said it best? It was, I can't remember, but it was, you learn from your failures, not your successes. And you learn from your failures, not your successes. Now, what do you think, because my whole thing is, Mike, I've always said bigger is always better. And you'll see this is different within the industry. Some people think smaller is better, some things bigger is better. What is your opinion on that?
It all depends on what you're going for.
Okay.
I had a conversation with a PM. I'll let him remain silent because we were at a mastermind, and that was kind of like a private setting, so I'm not going to put him on blast. But he's like, I don't want to get bigger, Mike. Like, I have all the doors I want. I just want to, kind of eke out all the money and profit and, that I can from that company. Love that guy. Great guy. Just a different thought process, For me, I said it early on, for us, it's just grow or die. We want to keep growing this thing. Real estate is really our tool and our vehicle to impact lives. We truly care about our people. We want them to be better off after leaving Atrium than when they started. And that kind of just filters down into our culture. We talk about weird stuff. I'm sure you do too. But we talk about things like fitness, right? We put fitness challenges out there. We're all on a step app, and we're all competing against each other to see who can get the most steps per day, and trying to get better. We talk about credit score. The number of people who we've had, that took their credit from 500 to 800 is so exciting. I just had a young guy on our team who's 28, and he called me excited the other day. He said, Mike, I just hit the 800 club.
That's awesome.
And that's pretty cool for a 28-year-old kid to do that. And so we focus on different stuff like that because we're trying to make a big impact, and big is important to us, but it's not to everybody. There are plenty of PMs I know out there that have 50 doors that make six-figure salaries, and they're happy. They get to go to every sporting event. They get to take long vacations. They get to do whatever they want. I'm on a different path. We're trying to build something big. So I don't think either one's better. I'm definitely into bigger.
Yes. Okay. So if bigger is better and AI is coming out, you see all this hype with AI. Is that practical or is it hype? Do you think AI is big for business? Is it important?
I think it is. I think you're going to fall behind if you don't utilize AI. I hear people out there utilizing AI though that are probably a year ahead of where we are, and I don't feel like we're necessarily behind. So I guess I would say, like, if you don't speak the lingo right now, don't get super discouraged and just shut it down, because I think it is a huge part of our future. Hilariously, like they recently, I've seen that newscast where they were talking about the internet and who needs the internet and who needs to send emails when you can just pick up the phone and call somebody. And it's funny to see that newscast now, but that's AI today, right? So artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So it's important to embrace it. I don't get it all. I have younger people, smarter people on my team that are helping push us forward. But I love looking at, dashboards that they put together that allow me to see all of our kind of KPIs and crucial statistics like easy in real time without having to dig through, our property management software or wait for a report to pull up. So It's really cool. And then I use it on a daily basis just to make my life easier. For example, one of our clients is refinancing a property. And yesterday they sent over a PDF and they said, hey, this is from the application for Freddie Mac. We need to know if we're going to hit these benchmarks. And he's like, I need to know within an hour or I might lose everything. And I'm like, man, the drama, right? But I took that PDF, I just loaded it into Claude and I said, make this into a spreadsheet. And then I put a test on it. I put a T3 and a T12 test on it. And it was branded with my colors because I preloaded a branding package into Claude. And it did 90% of the work for me. All I had to go do was pull the P&L and, from the past 3 months and from the past 12 months and put those statistics in there. If I was better, I'd have my Claude attached and it would have done it for me. That being said, I just did it manually. So I'm like probably halfway to what somebody who really knows what they're doing is. But it's important to keep trying because you don't want to be the people that just get totally left behind.
I like that you said keep trying because I think there's so many things changing so rapidly. Like you're not going to know everything with AI. It's changing every day. But you mentioned a few things that Atrium uses, dashboards, you use it for documents. What are 3 other ways that Atrium's using it right now?
One of the things we did recently is we used it to build a leasing answering service. We demoed another company's service and we were like, this is not hard to do. That one of the young gentlemen on our team built it over the course of a weekend. And I'll tell you, it is exponentially better than the service that we were using before. And it was exponentially better than the ITM, the international team member that we had doing it as a backstop. We kind of tested him a couple of times. I was like, oh my gosh. And then we ran the bot and it was perfect. It was quick. You had to pay a little extra for the premium service through Twilio. I'm probably saying that wrong. My guy could tell you what it is. But we had to pay a little more to get it done. But man, what a world of difference. And I am a little concerned for all my friends out there in the SaaS world because of how quick and how easy it is to make software these days. I think it's just important to get someone around you that knows what they're doing if you're not a technically inclined person, because it's going to be super important if you're trying to scale your company. Give you one more kind of old school example, just to go back to the internet / versus AI. I just finished reading the book A Wild Company, which is about Banana Republic and how Banana Republic started selling clothes through a catalog and then eventually online. Back in the day when Banana Republic was getting their website up to be one of a company that sold clothing online, it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a rudimentary website where they could sell clothing that literally Claude could build you in probably a half hour now, connect you to a much better payment processing system, handle the back end shipping and everything like that, versus like the amount of time and effort it took Banana Republic to figure it out. So the speed of business is just going to change tremendously with AI, and it's never been more accessible. Adam taught me this lesson early on at Atrium. You don't need to be the person who knows everything. You just need to find the person who's already done it and ask them how they did it. That's what we did when we started Atrium with Matthew and Duke and John Bradford and all the people that we learned from at NARPM early on. And then once you get that advice, just put it into place, put it into practice, try it, go for it, and then tell them thank you, and then turn around and give them credit from stage. Say, hey, my success is because of this. When you're telling the story, when you're out there, tell this. They're going to want to help you even more. I do that all the time for people too. I love helping people succeed. People on my team. It feels good. So anyway, yeah.
But that's what's important, right? It's we learn from others that already done it. Like, don't recreate the wheel. There is reasons and methods that work. That's why I have an advisory board and I try to learn from people like you and Matthew Whitaker and these people that have already done what we are trying to do. Because they're doing something, y'all are doing something that is winning. And if people learn from y'all, they can win as well. Now, you said something particularly interesting, because right now it's either, hey, use a AI out there or build it. And you just said you built it. Do you recommend building or using what's out there?
I don't even really truly know the difference, Tiffany, between using and building. Most of what I do is use. And I don't, building AI, we have a couple of guys on our team that really focus on, kind of helping us bring to fruition the ideas that Adam and I come up with, or other people on the team come up with. I think it's a little bit of both. Most of the time when they're building something, they're tying into other AIs. They're utilizing Claude, or they're utilizing, any number of tools that tie it all together. All AI related stuff. I don't know how it all works. You got the wrong guy for that technical AI conversation for sure.
It is incredibly interesting to see how fast paced it's moving and how many companies are starting to build their own softwares because of the fact that it is accessible and AI is changing the dynamic of every business out there. I have multiple friends that are in the coding industry, and their business are getting decimated in essence on some items. And so it's a normal person. Now I can go in and I can go into Claude and I can say, hey, build me this. And I can envision something, I can see it. So it has completely, definitely changed the game. From day one to now, Michael, and all the different things you've seen and all the different aspects of business, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from scaling a business from 1 unit to 11,000?
That is a great question. Biggest lessons, I just went over one of them. Just find the person that you're looking to, that's done what you're looking to do, and ask them how they did it. Take their advice and then thank them for it. Be memorable. I think it's one of our core values. Be authentic. I think people crave authenticity. Our mastermind group that we had built, all different personalities, different backgrounds, different political beliefs, and we meshed together and we were all ourselves. By the end of it, we used to tell each other we loved each other. Hey, love you, man. Like that's a different level of connection than just business associates. So it's important to be authentic, be yourself, and then kind of, what am I thinking of here? Be memorable. Going back to that, show appreciation to people. In terms of like a life hack, Andy Props always, every time he'd get around me, he said, "What's your life hack you just learned recently?" And I loved it. I remember the last time I talked to him about it, I told him about putting people's names in my phone, right? And I was moving into a new neighborhood at the time. I knew I was going to be meeting 100 people that I didn't know, and I didn't want to forget their name. More importantly, I didn't want to forget their wife's name, because I was going to see them fairly often, work, school, out in their yard, but I was going to go to one party and then 6 months later go to the next one, and I might forget the wife's name or the kid's name or the dog's name. So I started putting all those details in my phone, right under like the company / portion of the phone. So when they call, it shows up. So it says, my new neighbor, whose name is Josh, his wife's name's Taylor, and their kids' names are Bo, and and Luke, and their dog's name is Scout. And so as Josh calls me, it shows up on the screen and tells me. You don't want to forget those details, but it's easy to forget them.
I don't know if you remember, you taught me that. So we were at a conference and you showed it, the one where we went to the burger place with Deb and everything in Texas. And I don't remember the burger place, but you sat and you're like, this is what I do. And so now every time I put in a name, I say where I met them and then anything I learned about them specific so I can bring it up.
It's free,
it's a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, and I remember that burger place. It was like the Kamala versus the Donald burgers. You could get a Kamala burger or a Donald burger. Very memorable burger experience. I learned, Adam taught me that, my business partner. But the important part is just the be memorable aspect of it. It's the fact that you actually care about the person enough that you want to make them feel important, right? And we try to do that in all areas of our life. I'll give you another thing that Nate too had me on and had me talk to the whole Key Renter team. I love this story. One of the things we did to build our business is we just gifted. We just were observant and we sent people gifts. So 2 industry names you'll recognize probably, Brian Birdie. I went to his office and he taught me all kinds of stuff. at Birdie Properties, and I left, and I sent him a gift. I sent him a David Robinson and the Admiral. What was his name? It'll come to me after this, but the two best like center power forward combos in Spurs history. He's a huge Spurs fan. Had season tickets for 30 years. I sent him a signed picture with David Robinson and Tim Duncan's photo on it, and he texts me about that thing maybe once a year and just says, "Hey, thanks." He sent me a news clip. He's like, "Look at this. Your picture was on the news." And it wasn't intentional. I wasn't looking for credit. I was just wanting him to know that I appreciated his time when I was there visiting him, and that I appreciated our friendship. So I told this story to Key Runner, and Nate too sent me a whole box of like 12 pairs of socks because he heard that I like socks, and it was just very observant. I loved it. I still wear those socks today, Nate. So you can make people feel special, because like the relationships is how you build this business. No matter what, ultimately it boils down to people. Whether that's relationships with your team and making sure they know you care, or relationships with the people you're trying to expand the business with, it's super important. I could tell you countless business development stories on how we gifted our way to success.
Oh, I know you've told me multiple of those stories. And one thing you said is what people have to realize: this is a relationship business. People stay because they care. They don't stay because of a report. They stay because they know you care. And it's a relationship. They know that you're going to pick up that phone. They know that you're going to remember their mom's name or their wife's name. We have a client that's been with us since the day we started. We have a few of these, and they will pick up the phone and just talk to us, and we'll talk about family, and it's that relationship is why they stay, because they know we care. Can you tell us, going into this, I would love to know if you could actually give us an example of a big learning lesson, a big mistake that was made. Like I said from the get-go, sometimes we learn from our mistakes more than our successes.
Yeah, so I got the tail end of that. I assume you said that we learned that. Tell us about some mistakes you made along the way. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I said, would you be willing to tell us one big mistake you made along the way? Because a lot of times we learn from the mistakes, not always the successes. And I think in property management or any business, we always have something that we had to learn from. There was a defining moment, a huge mistake that made us change how we operated.
That is a great question.
Did I break up again?
No, I heard it all
Okay.
that time. I'm just trying to think of a huge mistake we made.
And maybe it's not huge, but a mistake that helped you learn and grow.
I would say most of the time it's little mistakes. It's wrong priorities. You mentioned something it was my next key to success is just not like the key is calling people back. It's literally getting back to people. I remember when I was new and I was doing all the hustling within the business. I was the one dealing with all the owner conversations and all the people whose houses weren't getting rented out and fast enough in their eyes, and all the people whose I would just drive around my neighborhood and drive circles around that neighborhood until I finished all my callbacks for the day. My neighbors probably thought I was crazy. I passed their house 12 times as I'm finishing up my phone calls before pulling in that driveway. Because calling people back, that's one of the things I learned from Adam early on. Before we started Atrium, I said, "Hey, what's one of the keys to success in your brokerage business that you've built with Wells?" And he said, "Just calling people back. My competitors don't call people back." He's like, "I call everyone back before the end of the day. I answer their call, and if I can't answer their call, I call them back before the end of the day." And I'll never forget my first week at Atrium with Adam. He called me, and I was in the shower in the morning, and I answered the call. And he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You said I need to answer the call." And he's like, "Not when you're in the shower." But it's a key. And I'd say I've made plenty of mistakes along the way that are like that, like prioritizing something over, calling somebody back, not getting back to somebody. Even recently, I made a mistake. Had a hard conversation with an ownership group they're our biggest client. And they asked something that just puts me in an uncomfortable situation. And instead of facing that head on, I just kind of put it off, knowing that there was no timeline on it to begin with. But then like when I finally did have the conversation, he's like, "Well, this kind of put a bad taste in my mouth." And I'm like, I can totally understand that. And we talked about it, and I think we're fine now. But it's just important to not put those things off, to face the big conversations or the awkward conversations head on, because it doesn't help. Putting it off only makes it worse. So just, yeah. Those are primarily little mistakes. Thankfully, no huge mistakes along the way that I can think of.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think hitting hard conversations on head first is like the most important thing in business. Because if you wait, it usually explodes a little bit bigger, right? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. People are assuming. That conversation can actually develop the relationship instead of hurt the relationship if you're willing to have it head on. That's one thing we train heavily on. We're still not perfect at it. We still make mistakes every day, but hitting those conversations head on and not waiting. So I got a couple more questions. I know you're busy, but defining success. If I were to go to your team and I were to ask, what does defining success to Michael Krause mean? What would your team say?
Defining success to Michael Krause. I mean, I think they'd all give some type of answer of like our team success. Seeing people succeed on the team. It's super important for me to continue, for our company to continue to grow, to impact people's lives. Our niche, if you follow Traction, all we do, our niche, our core focus is our core focus is creating meaningful relationships, and our niche is investing in people through real estate. Real estate's just our tool to make an impact in people's lives. And so I think most of them would talk about like the number of lives that we're impacting at Atrium, and the growth of the company that continues to expand that footprint and help make a difference in more lives. So that's somewhere along those lines, I think, is what my team would probably say.
That's incredible, because, it's interesting that you say that. One of the things that we just talked about, I think, in business, you have an opportunity to impact so many lives. And the bigger you get, the more lives you're actually able to impact. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we were just talking about that. We did our State of the Company address today, and we talked about how the bigger we're able to get, the more lives we're able to impact. So last question real quick before we end. Everyone's journey has a defining moment. Looking back on your career, what's one road less traveled, a decision that wasn't obvious at the time, but ultimately changed the trajectory of your life or business?
That's great. So I love this question. Every year we do an annual planning meeting. 2 years ago, our question at our opening dinner was, tell us about a defining moment in your life. And it didn't necessarily have to be business. So I'll give you mine, but I definitely recommend that as a conversation starter with your leadership team, because I learned things about people that I just absolutely loved. One of the guys on our team told a story about how his best friend wronged him. One of his best friends wronged him, and he wanted to punch this guy in the face, but instead he gave him a hug. And like what that did for him was like, and it's crazy though to hear these defining moments. So I'll tell you about one in mine. And it's not business related, so sorry for business-minded people. But maybe this gives you it helps you reflect on something that made an impact in your life. So I had to work. I was not athletic. I was not coordinated. I'm athletic, but I'm not cool under pressure, and I'm not coordinated. So I was good at running. So in basketball, I had to work my ass off to just make the team. I always made the team that I wanted to, but I'd be the 9th guy on the bench, right? I'd be the 10th guy, the third to last guy to get in the game. But I was always a hustle guy. And in 8th grade, my 8th grade basketball coach came to me, John Hinkle, and he said, "Hey, Mike, have you ever thought about running cross country? Because you just never run out of energy." And that changed my life, because when I went to high school, I never raced anything but varsity from my first race until my senior year. And so I learned that I could be a leader when I was focusing on the right areas, not trying to overcome my weaknesses. So we subscribe to a system called StrengthsFinder 2.0, and it talks about how it's so much more important to lean into your strengths than it is to try and overcome your weaknesses. Because I was never going to be a good basketball player, but I was a heck of a runner, because I didn't need the coordination. I didn't need the cool head. Like the cool head in running makes you run faster. not having a quit. So anyway, that would be one of the defining moments in my life, where I just felt like, hey, I can actually be a leader and change the trajectory of my life forever, for sure. I got
That's
like
incredible.
3 or 4 more. Yeah, I got 3 or 4 more that are super fun that you can look back on your life and say, well, that day made a big difference in my trajectory.
Yeah, and those moments definitely define us, help us become who we're supposed to become, and get us to where we need to be. Michael Krause, we appreciate you coming on today, all the insight you've given our listeners and our viewers. Thank you for coming on The Road Less Traveled.
I'll give you one more snippet.
Yes, I love
So
snippet.
yeah, so I'm just going to give you a few books. And the reason is because I talked about a lot of things today, but you're only going to retain so much from this, and I'm only so far on in my life. There are so many people out there that have done so much more than me that I've taken stuff from. So I'd love to share a couple books. We talked about founder stories and inspiration. That's big for me. If you haven't read the book Shoe Dog, which most of you probably have, it's one of my favorites of all time by Phil Knight. It's amazing how they made it all come together, and how Phil Knight accomplished what he did to build one of the most amazing brands in the history of the world at Nike. Great book. We talked about gifting and being memorable. Giftology was recommended to me by Andrew Smallwood over at Second Nature.
Awesome.
Amazing book. Mr. Schmooze, another book that just talks about how to be memorable and make people's days and elevate experiences for people. He talks like we all like to impress people, take them out to lunch. He has the idea. He's like, well, while they're at lunch, why don't you have the valet take their car out and get it detailed? Imagine the impact, and have a note in there like, thank you for having. Exactly, like you're
Right.
smiling because that's fucking good idea right there, right?
Good idea.
So, these ideas that these people have come up with. And then I also love Good Company, a book about Home Depot. All 3 of the Home Depot founder books are amazing. Built from Scratch, Good Company, and The Art of the Deal. They're all amazing. But their stories, these people, they've built billion-dollar companies. They spent 40 to 50 years doing it, and then they put it in a 300-page book exactly how they did it. Like, that's so much more valuable than anything I can do for you in 48 minutes on a podcast. So highly recommend those books. Another great one, which you've all probably read, is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, or Living with a Seal. If you're looking for some motivation on starting with you, which is our core value that centers around just fixing yourself before you try to fix anybody else, those are some absolute stellar books that helped me throughout my life. So that's
Those
it.
are
Hopefully.
fantastic books. Actually, David Goggins, you recommended to me, I don't know how many years ago it was, when we ran in, I think it was New Orleans or Orlando with the big group at NARPM. So I read it,
Orlando.
and the other one that you recommended, with Living with a SWAT or Living with a SEAL. That's what it was. That one was fantastic too. Those were both. Yes.
Living with a
and
SEAL.
the Shoe Dog. That one's good
Jesse
too. I
Itzler
love
is
that
a little
one.
unhinged,
Nike.
but man,
So-
that book will keep you in stitches and just inspire you and motivate you to think outside the box. He's got some incredible stories in there for sure.
Just like Michael said right now, I would say if you want to run a business, you want to grow a business, think outside the box. Stay outside the box, and the box actually cuffs you. So we appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you, or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.